Hey, family. Tonight kicks off season 3 of Excellence in Everything Live, which is my weekly podcast to empower emerging leaders with practical tools to become better communicators at work, at home, and with themselves. And I want to start tonight off by asking you this question. When you see this image, what comes to mind? What phrase comes to mind? If you were here at this event, what do you anticipate, whomever is leading that event, what do you anticipate them doing, saying? And we're going to talk about that as we jump into tonight's topic, how to get people to listen when you speak, right after the intro. Well, hello and happy Tuesday. I'm so excited to be back. I was actually nervous, to be quite honest. But this is where I live, move, and breathe. And that is in coaching, teaching, and training. And I'm glad that you're joining me live. If you've not yet met me, my name is LinnitaHosten. I am your podcast host and founder of Vocal Value. We equip emerging leaders to build better communication skills at work and at home and with themselves. And the last time that I saw you, we were actually preparing for Stage Power Intensive, which is my in-person public speaking class. And we had an awesome time. This is just some recap images of that. Stage Power Intensive is a public speaking class for leaders. And we are going to bring it back in October at the second half of the year. This is a big event. And the reason why I've been quiet and offline is because I exerted so much energy. I didn't realize that I did. And I was exhausted. But I was also proud of the execution. We had an amazing time. So again, if you are interested in perfecting your public speaking skills, you want to get better, you want to groom that skill set, put some activity behind becoming a better communicator, keep a lookout for the next one. The invites are coming. But let us jump into tonight's topic. I want to start by saying hi. Hi, Kimberly. I see you are joining us. It's a pleasure to have you. Let me know where you're watching from. You can drop that in the comments as well. I am monitoring that, but I appreciate you. Thank you for joining me live. Now, I mentioned this, or I asked this question at the top of the podcast. I asked, when you see this image, what comes to mind? And I want you to type in the comments, when this comes to mind, when you see this image, what do you envision hearing if you were at this event? Whomever is leading this event, what would that say? What would they say on the mic? Kim's from Philly. Philly is in the house. Appreciate you for streaming with us today, Kim from Philly. You can drop that in the comments. What do you envision a person, a facilitator saying at an event if you were at this event where the photo images is shared? I would love to know. Drop in the comments. And I'm going to tell you, as we're talking about how to get people to listen when you speak, this is highly related to that. And when I think of this image, I think ready, set, go. That's a phrase commonly used in races, competitions. It's like signaling participants to prepare and then begin. And I feel like when we are presenting as a communicator in front of any kind of audience, I always say an audience is anyone whom is listening to you with the expectation that you're communicating something valuable. We do that at home. We do that with our spouses. We do that at the bank. So when we're communicating, the expectation is, well, as a as a communications coach, the expectation is whatever you're sharing, it's deemed valuable. And so when I think ready, set, go, I can't stress how important it is to be prepared. When we talk about how to get people to listen to us, it's rooted in being prepared. Today, I want to talk through 2 ways that you can be prepared. I have a video that I want to show you of someone who I think communicates this really clearly, and I know you'll grab it. But ways that we prepare for to express our ideas and thoughts when we're creatively brainstorming, when we're preparing for a hard conversation with a spouse or a child, when we're preparing to present at the staff meeting. Like a lot of, I would say, getting people to listen to you has a lot to do with what it is that you're going to say when it's your time to go. And so when I think ready, set, go, I think journaling quickly, thinking through your talking points, writing down a brief skeleton of the things you plan to say. I call them flushing out your ideas. And part of it is training others to value what you say, is having something to share when you speak up. So when we don't do that, when we do not have a sense of preparation or a skeleton or outline, we're literally training others to hear us process our incomplete thoughts. And you tell me, when you hear something as incomplete, what do you do with that? When something is being communicated to you and it's in an incomplete thought or an incomplete form, what do you subconsciously do with that? You can tell me, you can throw it in the comments. What happens? What behaviors do you start to exhibit? I can tell you, for me, sometimes I might label the person as, okay, maybe not as knowledgeable, not as confident, maybe not as competent. I might even dismiss the thought. Sometimes I will turn off. My mindset is my mind is not there. And I always say, in communication, we never want to win back someone's attention. We want to retain it. So when you ask, how can I speak so others will listen? A part of that is training others to see your thoughts as valuable. Part of that training is, on the front end, we're preparing what we're going to say before it's shared. And I know you're going to ask the question, well, what if I don't have time to prepare it and it's on the spot? Again, training people to see what you have to share is valuable. I say things like this. I want to flesh out that idea because I want to honor your time. So I need a moment to think about that. Or give me a moment to think about that and I'll follow up. I want to make sure I have clarity of thought and we're having a good use of time when we chat. But that is me training someone to value what I'm going to say. I'm basically saying, hey, let me put in the extra work so that when I come to you, the time is of good use. And I don't know about you, but who wouldn't want that? We train people to do that when we put the preparation on the front end. And I want you to check out this video by Robert Greene. He's the author. He's an American author of the 48 Laws of Power. Check it out. Let me know what you think.
By talking too much in a meeting or in any kind of situation, you make people inadvertently smell weakness on you. A lot of communication between humans is nonverbal. We sense something from you and it communicates and we have an impression. And people who talk a lot generally give an impression of they don't know how to control themselves. Whereas people who kind of say a little bit less, kind of speak in riddles almost, who say, yeah, that's great, I'll think about it, or whatever, gives off an impression of power, as if they know more than they actually do. Mm-hmm. Because the game of power, a lot of it has to do with appearance.
Now, I will say this, Robert Greene's book, 48 Laws of Power, you can drop in the comments if you read it. I did read the second rendition of it, which featured 50 Cent. It was a very good but disturbing read. And I say disturbing because I felt like I was almost cringing at the concepts because maybe they've been applied to me and I could notice that in hindsight. But there's a lot of controversy around Robert Greene's theories as it relates to power. It's associated with manipulation. And while I'm not a fan of being manipulative, I am a fan of sharing or contributing things of value and doing it succinctly. Succinct meaning brief meaning very few words. So one of the things Robert talked about was when you are basically over communicating or talking too much, as he would phrase it. To me, that's a sign that a person is typically overcompensating for something. Think about it, like when I hear someone having maybe trying to find their feet in the expression of what they're trying to say. Maybe they don't have all of the content or the context. They're still trying to gravel with making it clear to themselves. Perhaps they might not have the confidence to present the information. Um, and I want to flip that too. And sometimes it's just lack of understanding. But think about when you have certainty about something, when you're sure, you have a process down pat. You can show someone or demonstrate something to someone because you know it so efficiently. Think about how less of words, or how few words you use when you're communicating about that. An example might be how you talk about your children, or how you talk about a project that you led at work and how it starts and finish. Like the things that you own or you're proud of. They don't typically take a lot of words to convey. You have a strong sense of understanding and confidence about them. And I feel like when to get people to listen to you, you have to have that strong sense of brevity that that signals to someone that you clearly know what you're talking about. And so we do that if you're not quite yet fluid in the expression of your thoughts, we do that by preparing on the front end. So before we express them verbally, we're taking time to brainstorm, outline, write out, possibly even reference the notes that we have. Possibly even reference the notes that we have. Kim said she read the 48 Laws of Power a long time ago. It's definitely one of those reads that you can kind of like bring back up to the forefront. So I appreciate you for sharing. And yes, she agree. Yep, it can be viewed as a manipulative. And as someone who is very self-aware, very keen about soft skills and human psychology, I love reading about those things. I'm very sensitive about those forms of manipulation. But I definitely wanted to share Robert's video. So the first thing that we talked about, Kim, we said, when you want to get people to listen to you when you speak, that's that piece of coming prepared, that preparedness, that ready, set, go mentality. We do that by taking time to brainstorm our thoughts before we share them, outlining them. If we're not prepared to share them verbally and we're in a meeting or a communication like dialogue right now, simply saying that I need a moment to flesh out these thoughts, or I need time to really think through what I want to share. You want to train people to expect value when you speak. When you have that established, whenever you share, you won't have to worry if they're listening. You've trained their ear to hear you from that lens. And so we do our part by preparing. The second way that I feel like we can get people to listen when we speak is we have to master our nonverbal communication. Robert alluded to this in a video about our communication being nonverbal while we are verbally conveying something. Like today on the podcast, I'm verbally teaching you, but there's so many other elements that you're probably subconsciously judging. The lighting, the video quality, the neatness of my hair. You're looking at my makeup, my facial expressions. You're looking at my teeth. You're looking at my clothes, how I'm dressed. All of those things make up what we would call a person's visual identity. And as they're communicating as a recipient, you are typically evaluating, to not consciously, but you're evaluating the credibility, the confidence, and the competence of a person as they're talking by what they're doing nonverbally. So when you know that the human mind, while they are listening to you, they are visibly watching you. When you know that as a speaker, it becomes almost a necessity to manage your nonverbal communication. That's your eye contact. Those are your facial expressions. We talked about this in season 2 about the impact of having a resting face and how that affects interpersonal communication skills. But also, and this is a really easy one, and we won't go into the depth of this tonight, but you should be smiling as you're talking. I guarantee you, if you were to view any videos of yourself talking to someone you love or someone at work, and you were conveying something that might have been, one of those hard to digest, or maybe that was blunt feedback or very critical feedback, how you deliver that by way of your facial expressions, it matters. I can give you so many examples of how those small nuances, like smiling when you're speaking, are just subtle things that I feel like if when you want people to listen when you speak, mastering that, it definitely, it's a big deal. And those are the two that I wanted to share tonight. But I wanted to leave you with this. When I first began my journey of speaking, I was young. I was 22. When people ask, how did you develop a level of confidence and competency? It's through practice. I was young and very ill equipped, might I add. And I was very conscious about my nonverbal. So not only was I young, I looked young. Everything. I still do. You probably say you still look like a baby. So imagine 15 years ago how I looked. I was so self-conscious about that. I overcompensated by dressing mature, grooming my hair in a very mature way, and learning to speak in a language that didn't convey that I was young. So I have this hypersensitivity about those things. Now, I'm not saying you should have that, but there is a level of conscientiousness that you should have about how you're showing up in relationship to the people that you're in front of. So what does that look like for you? Sometimes when you are the only woman in your space, or that you're the youngest in your space, or maybe you're the only person of color in your space. Maybe you're the oldest in the space. But those nuances and the nonverbal communication that follows them also shows up when you're communicating. And those are just things to think about. But when we talk about wanting people to listen when we speak, we have ownership over that. And when I hear things, when I'm at an event or I hear people say things like, listen up, I need everybody to be quiet. When you command an audience, you don't have to do that. That's not language that I use. And a lot of that is preparation, what you do in that environment before you began speaking. So there's a lot of layers to this. I'm not jumping into all of them tonight, but it's what you're doing to propel or prepare a group of people to hear you also sets the tone too before you're in that environment. We call that the art. That will be the art of communicating. The science is what I just conveyed the first 10 minutes of related to the human behavior and how we subconsciously are viewing other people. But the art of communication is really what you're doing to connect with people on the front end before you begin speaking. But the two go together. They are married. I would say the art and the science of communicating, they are married. What questions do you have? Give me a scenario. Have you had any instances or practices of this? I would love to know. I'm going to take a moment to, just in case I'm not seeing your comments from LinkedIn, I'm going to go to LinkedIn to make sure I'm not missing them. But what questions do you have? How do you feel about when you're speaking? Do you feel like people are listening? Okay, Dr. Sellos asked, what about if it's sporadic? Now, Dr. Sellos, I am just seeing your comment, so I don't have the context in relationship to the question that you're asking. So could you give me a little bit more clarity when you asked about what about if it's sporadic? I'm assuming when you give feedback, but give me some context to that so I can answer. And I'm watching, I had to pull it up on my cell phone. So I can pull it up on my cell phone. Let me know. I want to definitely answer that. What context are you referring to about it being sporadic? Um, and the other thing I want to add is your communication skills will only improve through practice. And this is such a transparent moment in me saying this, but the reason why I podcast is to continually practice and study the skill that I coach, teach, and train on. That's why I podcast. Also to maintain my social visibility online, but it's really to keep that skill polished. Because if I'm not keynoting, if I'm not publicly training and coaching, that skill is, while it is there because I've been refining it, I always want it to be at its best when someone makes that call. And I do that by continually practicing the skill. You can do that too by finding a way to implement speaking in your norm. So if you are a part of a leadership team, instead of delegating the speaking tasks, maybe you fight through your maybe lack of confidence as it relates to that. Maybe you sign up for Toastmasters. Maybe you consider coaching with my group coaching program. Maybe you'll come to Stage Power Intensive, but you have to practice the skill. You practice it. Fluidity of speech is done through practice. Being able to articulate your thoughts with brevity and being able to master your nonverbal communication, that's done through practice. And so you have to have a place to practice that. Dr. Sellis, I don't see your comment. I don't see. Oh, I see it now. There's a lag too. There's a few seconds. Dr. Sellis said, "What if you cannot find the words in the moment, but you had the idea to share?" Okay, so and I did mention that too. Thank you, by the way. So this happens to me all the time. So I'll typically say that I have an idea. It's not quite flushed out yet. I want to share it. So that's all. I want to share it. Give a time frame, however that relates to you. But then we're responsible for following back up to share that thing. And the reason I started practicing this is, okay, let me back up for a second. Now I get to nerd out. So I'm a holistic life coach. Holistic just means emotionally, socially, spiritually, and physically. That's it. There's no crazy stuff, just considering all of those components. And I always say our communication style and our ability to communicate is highly tied to the state of our emotions. So if you're in a highly emotional state, that wouldn't be the time to communicate something very serious, something that you are very concerned about, and or something that really bothers you. It's our job to regulate our emotions and get to a place of neutral, emotionally neutral, so that we can objectively communicate. Again, this is training others to hear us. What we have to say is valuable versus vomiting our feelings and working through those things. And so I apply that same concept in business so that I'm not vomiting ideas or lacking clarity or brevity. I will say, I got an idea, not fully fleshed out yet. Give me a moment to process it. I want to put more thought to it, and I want to circle back and share that with you. Sometimes it may be the next meeting. It may say, can we throw a note on our agenda for next week? I want to bring an idea to the table. But we have to take ownership of that. I would say I would really challenge us to remove maybe the urgency to share something right away, unless it's like time bound. And even if it is, give yourself the grace to think through it so that we are training people to see your thoughts as value. Again, this is training. I remember I said in 2023, we have to train people how to treat us. And it's true. Like, think about how you were able to get the love that you like, or how you were able to get the respect that you like. There was some training that took place. So we train people to listen to us too by having a little bit of self-control and ownership over how we communicate. And so, yeah, just let them know. I want to flesh it out, but I definitely want to come back to you on this. This is a great question, by the way, and something that we definitely deal with in real time. In real time. Okay, perfect. I see that your response is that you got the answer to it. Awesome. All right. Well, I like to keep our episodes brief because I want you to get to the end. So I'll say all that to say I'll stop here for today. Thank you for joining season 3. I'm excited. I'm excited about this season. If you have a topic that you'd like me to cover, drop it in the comments and we'll add it to the lineup. Thank you, Kim from Philly, for joining us. Dr. Celesso, let me know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Thank you for joining us. I'll see you next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And we're going to continue just building on those concepts of becoming a better communicator at work, at home, and with ourselves. I absolutely love you. There's nothing you can do about it. See you soon.